welcome to The Trumpet, the official podcast of Elephant Room Productions. As always, I am your host, Robert Jean Pellecchio, with a record-breaking third Trumpet installment of the month. This may probably be the record for the most Trumpet drops in a month, not counting extra-sodes and mini-sodes and little bonus content. I hope that I have made up for the long absence of the Trumpet by dropping so many fun Playwright interviews in your timeline feeds over the past couple weeks. This interview has been one that has had a pretty long gestation period from record to edit. I recorded this mid to end of February. We completed the play reading at the end of March. And then right after that, I got COVID and didn't feel like editing, so I'm very sorry about that. Sorry to David that this has been a little bit of a delay, but this is a very, very fascinating conversation. David was an incredible energy to talk to. He was very kind and very, very interesting to hear about his very long playwriting journey. And like many of the playwrights we talked to, he's one of those playwrights that wears a couple different hats in the theater world, and we talk about some of his history on stage and off. So we're going to get to that in a little bit, but as has been the pattern for the last couple episodes, we're going to lead with the scene so that the interview can be uninterrupted. So without further ado, I'm very happy to present this scene from the play According to John by David John Preece, and then an uninterrupted conversation between me and David John Preece.
Bishop Richard Andrews, a man in his late 60s, is sitting at a small conference table with his wife, Susan, a woman in her early 60s, and his attorney, Stephen Land, a man in his mid-50s, who is reviewing his file and papers.
We've a few minutes before we go into the courtroom, and there are a few things to go over with you before the proceedings begin.
I've not committed any crimes nor broken any laws.
It is the court that you have to convince. I hope they'll listen with an open heart and mind.
Is there any chance, what are his chances of being acquitted?
It depends on the court's interpretation.
But the facts are there in black and white.
Your husband's accusers are using their own narrow interpretation of the laws and doctrine. The question is whether the court will accept their interpretation. But in the meantime, it's important that you do not stoop to their level or tactics.
So we'll have to keep turning the other cheek, right? Because of their accusations, we've received hundreds of hate calls, emails, and letters, some even threatening our lives.
Susan, didn't he teach us to love our enemy?
I believe that they've forgotten about his teachings. And at times, I believe that he has forsaken us.
As hard as it is, he has not forsaken us.
We only have a few minutes before we go into the court.
Yes. You mind getting me something to drink?
What would you like?
I'd love a martini, but you know it's too early.
Let me see what I can
Well,
find.
that'd be fine.
I'll see what I can find.
Thank you.
Susan leaves the room.
Can we proceed?
Please.
I know we've been through this several times, but I just want to go over a few more questions before we go in.
Okay.
Now, to the person in question, how many years have you known Larry Schofield?
I don't know. I first met when I had just become the bishop of the diocese, about 10 years ago.
Was it at this time that you knew of Mr. Schofield's desire to be a priest?
No, it was several years later.
Where were you?
I believe I was in my office preparing a sermon. You know, the older one gets, the harder it is to keep track of time or the sequence of events. All blends together. What if?
What if what?
What if I hadn't been there? If I hadn't met him? If none of this had happened? What if?
The lights change to reflect an earlier time. Andrew moves to the crowded desk with a stack of reference books next to it. Larry Schofield, a young man in his mid-30s, sticks his head in the door. With a saddlebag over one of his shoulders, his arms is full of files and books.
Hello?
Oh, hello. Can I help you with something?
Yes, I have an appointment with you.
You do? Does my assistant know?
She should have. I made the appointment through her.
Oh, I see.
If this was not a good time, I could come back.
No. This is as good a time as any. Come in, please.
Are you sure? If you're busy,
No. This is fine. I'm just working on my sermon for Sunday. It's on the life of John.
John, the beloved?
That's the one.
The Gospel of John is my favorite.
Is it? Why's that?
I don't know. I guess it's because he was there with him.
Who was?
John. He was personally there with him, unlike some others in the Gospels.
You mean Paul, don't you?
Who else? And besides, he tells it like it is. There's no personal agendas. There's no beating around the bush with John.
No beating around the bush, you say?
It's one thing to write about someone else's experiences and stories, but it's another thing to write about your own. His picture of Jesus is one who promises love and hope, what most people want. I can't speak for anybody else, but I need to believe in love and hope.
We all need to believe.
And also, there's no harsh judgment in John, as there is in the other Gospels, just acceptance. That's what I want to believe Jesus was all about.
I agree.
The other Gospel writers tend to forget the basic message of love and forgiveness in the place of their own agendas.
I see. So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or did you just stop by to say hello?
Yes, there is. I want to be ordained.
Ordained?
Yes, as a priest.
A priest?
Yes, I submitted all of my paperwork months ago to this office, and I would like for you to ordain me.
You would? Well, just like John, no beating around the bush, right to the point.
But I'm qualified and ready.
Not to mention being humble, too.
If I don't speak up for myself, who will?
Good point. Well, please come in and sit down.
Thank you.
So, tell me about yourself.
Myself? Well, I think you know already. We've talked with each other nearly every day since you first came here.
And what I've seen since I've been at the diocese is that you're a very active, creative, and a hard worker. Is that right?
Yes.
Sometimes I've noticed that you get things stirred up.
I do have a flair for color and controversy.
I don't believe you ever told me where you're from originally.
I thought I had. A small town in Delaware.
Really? Where?
Lewis.
No. Lewis by the ocean?
That's the same Lewis, unless it has been washed away by the winter storms.
I grew up in Lewis, too. Of course, that was many years before you were born. Larry Schofield. Who was your father?
Daniel Schofield.
No kidding. I went to school with Danny. How is he?
Dead.
Oh. Sorry to hear.
No, don't be. He died over 20 years ago.
How may I ask?
Cancer.
Seems so unfair.
Like AIDS.
Yeah. How true. So tell me, what are your interests in the church?
Well, there are so many.
For instance?
For instance, I'm interested in developing new ideas in Christian education and outreach.
I agree.
There are so many hungry souls out in the world wanting a place at the table and finding that they're not welcome.
Well, of course they are. Everyone is welcomed at God's table.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Not everyone feels that way.
Well, there are always exceptions. Tell me more about you.
Here is another copy of my application for you, but I think you already know.
Refresh my memory.
Okay. I'm a graduate of Berkeley Theological Seminary, a part-time lay assistant to the rector of the Good Shepherd, and I also work part-time at the diocese with the Young Adult and Homeless Outreach Ministries.
That's right. How long have you been a candidate for holy orders?
Several years.
And where are the findings of your preliminary interviews?
The recommendations are included.
I see. So, do you think you're qualified?
I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I was.
Well, just looking at these, by your background in education, as well as the screening process of every diocese in the church, it looks like you're qualified for holy orders.
What did I tell you?
Yes, you're qualified.
I've worked hard, and I want my place at the table. I want to serve God.
I can't see anything that would prevent me from ordaining you.
David Jackson, a young, attractive man in his late 30s, walks past the office and looks in. He sees Larry.
There you are.
David.
Excuse me for barging in like this.
Not at all.
How much longer do you think it will be? The kids are getting very restless in the car.
I'm almost through. Bishop Andrews, you know David, my partner.
David walks over and shakes Andrew's hand.
Yes, I've met you at several church meetings. Your partner?
And welcome back. That was a scene from According to John by our playwright of this episode, David John Preece. So welcome, David. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today.
Well, welcome and thank you for inviting me. This is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you.
I will say this is probably goes on record as the earliest record I've ever done. You were very gracious to push this conversation a little bit when I was caught up in Beauty and the Beast nonsense the other day. I usually record these in the evening and pair it with a cocktail. I think this is the first ears reading that I am pairing with a coffee, which maybe, I mean, who knows? We'll see how this interview goes. Maybe. Oh, you've got tea.
Yes, I'm a green tea drinker.
Me too. Yeah. I used to be a lot more heavily into tea. I work for a certain coffee company whose logo is a siren. I don't want to say which, because they're very specific about social media stuff. But we bought a tea company a couple of years ago that was known for selling loose leaf tea. So for a period of time, we would sell loose leaf tea in our cafes. So I got really into loose leaf tea for a little bit. I had like the strainer that you just kind of like put on top of the mug and it drains through. Our artistic director actually once got me it was like a little tea man. It's a guy that kind of hangs over the edge of the teacup, and his pants are the strainer. You load some tea into the pants and dip them in, and then he just kind of hangs over the cup with his legs in, and it steeps the tea. So
wonderful. Okay.
But I need to get back into I used to go all out with crazy teas. I always get my mother crazy teas for Christmas. And as per usual, we're about like 2 minutes into this conversation, and I've let you talk a very minimal amount of time. So let me shut up.
Okay. That's okay.
Move over to you. And as always, if you could just start us off by just telling us a little about your theater background and kind of what gets us to where we are today.
Well, it started out in 1961 when I was in the 4th grade, and the local university of my town was putting on The Music Man. And they were calling for auditions for Winthrop and Amaryllis. So I begged my mother to let me audition. And she had to do a lot of convincing with my father, who was totally against the idea. but he finally relented, and I auditioned, and I got cast as Winthrop's understudy. And then I became totally hooked in the theater and the magic that it creates. And from there, I noticed another play that they were doing called Lillian Hellman's The Children's Hour. And it was very controversial because I grew up in a Mormon community in Utah, and they were talking about censorship and the topic. They wouldn't talk about the topic, it's say, but they kind of went around it. And I really wanted to see it more than anything. But again, it was not to happen. So I went to the library and checked it out. And discovered The Best of Plays by Burns, edited by Burns Mantle. And I read The Children's Hour, and I was just totally involved with Lillian Hellman's writing. And from that, I became familiar with Tennessee Williams and Terrence McNally's and Edward Albee and Neil Simon and Stephen Sondheim's work. And then I got into the classics of Chekhov and Ibsen and Shakespeare in college. But that was my life. I loved the theater. I would have done anything to become involved. So in college, I was kind of preordained to be a medical doctor, and that didn't happen. So I went into urban planning, and I was a planner for 44 years. And while I was doing that, I decided to be a playwright, and that was in 1980. So I would write on the side at nights when I didn't have an evening meeting, on holidays, weekends, and I was very serious about this. And then when I had an opportunity to take classes in New York City, I took classes at HB Studio and Playwrights Horizons. And then from there, I moved to San Francisco and took classes at ACT. And then I moved to LA to take classes at UCLA in screenwriting. So playwriting has always been an important feature in my life. And while I was in LA, I was very fortunate to get involved with a theater group called the Knightsbridge Theater. They were located in O Town, Pasadena. And they would put on 3 plays at a time. And it was a 99-seat equity waiver theater. But the actors and the directors were all just incredible. And I was asked to do an adaptation of Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. And so I did that. And then that led into The House of the Seven Gables. And then I did an adaptation of Charles Dickens's Ghost Stories, which was very popular and very widely produced. And then I did an original play called Tender. And I was very fortunate that this theater company would produce these plays. And I had a following. And then sometime after like 2002, I just got fed up with LA and just said, I can plan, I can write any place. What I need to have is an environment that's less stressful. So I moved to New Hampshire, and so here I am, and I've been in New Hampshire now for going on 19 years. So, and I've been writing all along, but keeping it very quiet about it because, you can't be a professional planner and have the standing if you're also known as a playwright, So I did this very closeted for many years. So, but now I'm doing it.
brushing
Go ahead.
past the fact that you do not look like someone who was in 4th grade in the 60s, for anyone watching this. I may not be
You're
great at math.
very kind to me. You're very kind. You're very kind.
I do. But no, I'm very, very happy that your theater journey started on the stage, because one of my favorite things to talk to playwrights about, and not an episode has gone by where I have not talked about the multiple hats that people wear. And it's always fascinating to me that there always seems to be there's 2 very clear camps, and neither of them are better or worse than the other, but there's the I am a playwright first and foremost and only, and that is it. And there is also the camp of I've dabbled in all areas of theater, and this is where playwriting ranks on the list. Usually, obviously, it's higher if we're talking to you about being a playwright. But it's always interesting, and I always like to ask, because everybody has a different answer to it. How did working in these other areas of theaters, particularly performance, influence your writing style at all, or your inspirations for writing?
Well, it brought me back to the reality that if you want a play produced, you've got to be cognizant of certain things, like how many actors in your cast, their production values. I want my plays to be produced, and I know that there is a number out there of 8 actors, and that is the limit, and that's the high on the list. They would prefer even less, but so I write plays in which, and John is like that. It has 8 actors, but they're playing multiple characters, and I think that really says to the audience, these individuals, these actors are really great. They can be several people, and they can do it convincingly. Like Kirshner's Angels in America, And so I write with that in mind, with very minimal set design and props. So the action is with the spoken verb and the actors, and not anything else. So
yeah, I'm currently directing a show with a cast of 50, so I feel that very much.
Yes. So that, and I've also produced, so I know the money involved, and I know the importance of marketing and communicating to the outside world that this play is going on and it's special and you need to come and see it. So marketing too is very important. I've done that, and I've come back to the stage like 10 years ago in a play called Elegies, and I had a part. But
I feel like I've heard that name, the title of that play before. I can't remember where, but so do you consider yourself, obviously playwriting has taken much more of the front seat, but do you still work in any other area of theater, even part-time, be it acting or directing, anything like that?
No, it's just primarily focusing on the writing aspect of it.
Yeah. I do really respect your recognition of the producibility of plays. I think I've told this story before, but when I was in high school, there was this it was like a middle school to like early high school writing competitions, like a playwriting thing, and some of the winning or the finalists, they got pieces of their plays read. And they, one of the directors asked for actors from the high school to come in to read these plays at, it was the Barn Playhouse in Jeffersonville in Pennsylvania. And one of them was like the climax of an epic fantasy play. And there were all these stage directions about goblins, and it's like the villain gets thrown off a pyre into a pit of spikes and all this stuff. And we finished reading the scene and we put the script down, and the director said, well, we're going to put this one in the pile of plays that can never be produced. So it's definitely a worthwhile skill to know the limitations of a physical space and a theater budget and the amount of actors that you can conceivably put in a scene at any given time.
And you also have to respect the director too.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, I write in so much stage directions, but I'm tempted to do more. But then I said, I'm not respecting the director or the actors, and maybe they can find a way to do this even better. So I write that in my mind too, that I need to have that respect, and maybe they'll respect me back. So
one of the earliest plays that Elephant Room Productions produced, it was a play called Salamander by a good friend and colleague of ours, Lisa Villamil, and she actually does no stage directions in her
really?
Piece, which is
Wow.
fascinating to me. She which is funny because when we, you heard in the reading of your play, whenever there are stage directions in an ears reading, because it's a recording, we will assign someone to facilitate and read those stage directions so that, if anybody else is listening, they know what's going on because it's in audio. So I was assigned stage directions for that play. We didn't realize until we were midway through the play, there were no stage directions for me to read. What she would do is she would put like an ellipses at points, like 3 dots or something. And she was like, you can make this an action. They can do jumping jacks. They can jump here. They can, do something. It is your call. The words of the text, the dialogue of the piece is more, is the important driving force of this story. You as the director and the producers of this piece, it is up for you to decide what action is going on. Which I thought was...
She's very brave. She's very brave.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give that much latitude, I don't think. But
well, and I've also, I've seen it in the opposite direction too, where the stage directions are so involved and so intrinsic, and these are in, significantly published works.
Yes.
And
like,
you read them...
like The Humans. That was one play that was just it was mogged down with directions and stage, and you lost the tension of the play by reading it. You're going, wow, this is like a screenplay more than a play,
Yeah. And sometimes we'll meet like in the middle. I will see, like, I almost wish that there were slightly more attention to the director's needs. I directed Guys and Dolls a couple years ago, and there is a scene right before, the second to last scene is Sarah and Adelaide having that duet of Marry the Man Today.
Yes.
The next scene has to start with Adelaide coming out in a wedding dress. And I'm flummoxed looking at this thinking, why did they not put even half a page of dialogue in, at the beginning of this next scene to give my poor actress the chance to go off stage, put on a dress, and come back on stage? So
right.
It's such a skill to be able to have that thought. So you did mention that you've been writing for quite a while.
Right.
What is do you have a particular style and genre that you tend to stick to, or has that evolved and shifted and changed over time?
Well, I just love dramedies, drama with a comedic element involved. I mean, I love the tension to be so intense that the audience feels like the air is being knocked out of them. And they go home questioning and talking and discussing the play as to, the content of the play. To me, that's a success. That is a success. I mentioned a play that I wrote called Tender, in which it involves F. Scott Fitzgerald, Zelda, and Hemingway colliding one night in Paris. And the play is based on fact, on what happened with these characters at that time, but it leaves the audience kind of speechless. And I want all my plays to be this way, to have this element of surprise. So maybe I'm being disturbed or something like that, but I don't make it easy for the audiences either.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, also, like I very rarely want to leave a film or a play having, you know, my experience end when the credits start or when the bows come out. I mean, it's, you know, I want to, you know, I don't necessarily want too many questions left unanswered, but I definitely want to, you know, think about motivations and story and, you know, the whole arc.
Right.
And that I think very nicely brings us into the play at hand. So even though I did drop a description in the episode description for this episode, but before we start talking about it, can you just give a quick little rundown of what this piece is, and then we'll start chatting about your inspirations behind it.
The play is about a Protestant bishop being tried by a small group of conservative bishops for heresy because he ordained a gay man in a relationship. And the story is basically the preparations before the trial, but it's interwoven with a modern retelling of the Gospel of St. John's. It's kind of frames the discussions of how the conservative organized religions have not changed since the last 1,300 years, and how they're still being threatened by people who are out of the norm and are not like them. So it's a play, and now we're seeing this, you know, in other parts of our country. If you're not a white male, then you are held suspicious. So I think it's a very important play for this time. And it also questions the authority that, you know, should be questioned.
So as per the theme of the last few episodes, it seems that we're about to talk about a barrel of laughs. No, of course I'm being facetious. But yeah, it's obviously a very heavy subject matter, and unfortunately one that is not, you know, as much as I would love this to be a, you know, Crucible level, you know, oh, this is how things were back then, how horrible type of story. You know, it's something that we deal with on a day-to-day, and it's very, very unfortunate.
But the Crucible thing is happening again today. You know, teachers are being held in contempt for teaching the truth about race and racial conditions in the past. And
not
teaching
just that, you know, sexuality.
Novels,
and,
yes. And I think it's very scary that the fact that here we are in 2022, and we're having these same discussions, and books are being banned and burned, and teachers are forbidden to talk about gender and sex and race. And so it's still going on. It's still going on.
I saw a horrifying clip today from, you know, and kind of a, you know, trigger warning here for any trans listeners, or anyone with a heart who would react to this, but a trans content creator that I follow posted a video of I don't know if she's a congresswoman or she's running for some office, but I feel like she was a teacher in Texas, and she talks about having transgender students. She describes them as, you know, a student who is transgendering into another gender, and how, you know, the other, you know, how uncomfortable she is, and how, like, you know, the other students aren't, you know, I'm not supposed to the other students are not allowed to laugh at this person or blah, 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 all this stuff. And it's like, you really take it down to the core. And it's like, you really need to be explained why you as a teacher need to prevent other students from bullying a student in your class that you have been entrusted with. It's you could take the word transgender out of that and put any other put class, put race. I mean,
Right.
if someone,
Yes.
if someone has the wrong shoes on and kids are making fun of that person,
Right.
Like, are you as the teacher really saying, well, that's out of my control, I don't understand why I have to step in? So obviously we have quite a bit of real world source material for this, but was this specific story in this play inspired by any particular events?
Well, during the early 90s, there were several heresy trials in the Protestant church, where they were trying to get rid of those bishops who were basically following, to me, the letter of what God is about, and that is love, inclusiveness. And they were ordaining gay and lesbians into the priesthood, which they should be. And so there were trials going on, and it was a big thing. And I had recently made a conversion from being a lapsed Mormon to an Episcopalian. So my awareness was even greater at that time. So I just, kept very, very in tune into this. And then other events happened, like the ordination of Eugene, Bishop Eugene, in New Hampshire. And so I just thought it needed to be written. And so that's why I'm doing it. That's what I did it.
And we're certainly thrilled to have had the opportunity to give it a pass. But I wonder, so what's the history of this particular play? Was Elephant Room the first group to take a look at it, or did this have any other eyes or productions prior to coming to us?
There was a reading of this in Kentucky about 10 years ago of one scene. But that's been it, because I really wanted to work with a theater group, a director, and a group of good actors to kind of fine-tune this play. So the Elephant Room gave me this opportunity, or is giving me this opportunity. And I really am grateful for them, because it will give me a chance to work with a group of professional individuals who can give me some more insights into the play and make the play better.
Now, obviously, you said 10 years ago for a reading of a scene. This may be one of the longer stretches of development. When did you start writing this piece?
I started writing this piece around 2000.
Okay.
So then I just kind of put it aside, and then I worked on it again, and then put it aside. I was always writing other plays, but this was always back of my mind, and I thought it really needs to have a production of it, because I think the message is very important and it needs to be told.
Embarrassingly, just a quick sidebar, embarrassingly, I still hear 10 years ago and think the 90s, so I need to remind myself the time is flowing. But yeah, no, so like, a 20-year development is, it's no small feat. I mean, it's obviously a lot, even with you taking breaks, like, it obviously shows that a lot of care has gone into crafting this story and perfecting it. And I can very much respect that.
Yeah, and I also think, I also believe that there is a time and place, and it will happen to you. So if you force it to happen, it may not be the right theater group or director. and it will not be a good experience. One of the things that I thought was amazing that Edward Albee considered all of his plays works in progress. Even when they were produced and printed, he was always making changes to it. And I think
still, I mean, well, what was it? Zeus Story, I believe, was the big one. That's the famous one that you very rarely are even allowed to produce Zeus Story in its original one-act form anymore.
But I think that says a lot, because a play is organic. It lives. It has to live and breathe. And if it's not doing it, if it's just stoic, then you might as well just put it back into the library shelves, saying this is an artifact of one time. I want my plays to be living and breathing and something that can be acknowledged and discussed in the moment, in the present, and hopefully in the future.
So what is the next stage for this piece? I mean, obviously it's been a long journey for it so far.
Again, I'm waiting for the right theater and ensemble to do it and to work with them on that. So if you know of any, let me know.
Will do. My insight right now, just based on my experience with the world of theater, I can definitely tell you what theaters to avoid.
Okay.
But it's such a special magic that I never get tired of working in theater, is seeing these plays grow and flourish and develop, and seeing the changes. I'm very excited. I talk about this a lot. It's one of the unfortunate trade-offs for doing all of these readings virtually and spread out is we get a much wider range of playwrights, we get a much wider range of actors, but we as a company are not always able to be at every one. So I've not gotten a chance to listen to this one yet. I was unable to attend the initial record of it, but I'm very excited after talking to you to not only listen to it, but once it goes through any more development, hearing how it changes and hearing how it grows and develops from there. So I really hope that we were able to give you some good insight on that. And I'm really excited to hear where this is going to go next.
I'm very excited too. I'm very excited. And I'm very honored that the Elephant Room has chosen me to have this experience and to have it vocally, audibly presented so I can hear it again and work on those areas that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, and it's one of our favorite things to do. I think I speak for many of us when I say we offer something that is very unique to the theater world. So I'm really happy to be able to see that. Like I said, my favorite thing, it's one of my favorite things about being a director is seeing things come to life and seeing stories come alive and flourish. So I get kind of that same enjoyment out of seeing these plays come together. So again, I'm so excited that we had this opportunity, and I'm so excited to see where it goes next.
Great. And this has been a terrific time to talk with you. And
thank you, David.
I really appreciate it
as well.
And good luck with Beauty and the Beast. It's going to be another hit.
Thank you so much. I know based on my editing schedule, by the time this episode comes out, I'm sure we will have opened and closed. So I'm very excited to see it come up. I'm also very excited to not necessarily think about it every minute of every day. David, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And I just want to wish you break a leg and have a great experience. So yeah, good luck. Good luck.
And the same well wishes to you and this play.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
David, thank you so much for talking with me, and we'll see where the show goes next.
Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to The Trumpet, the official podcast of Elephant Room Productions. The Trumpet is hosted and edited by me, Robert Jean Pellecchio. The views and opinions shared by the podcast guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Elephant Room Productions. For more information on Elephant Room Productions or on the Elephant Ears reading series, please visit us at elephantroomproductions.com. Until next time, this is Robert Gene Pellecchio, signing off.